Welcome. We'll start with the next set of questions for the January 2017 NET paper 1. Now the first question here talked about expressive communication is driven by. Now expressive communication is a communication where one tries to express oneself. So I can say, if we talk about personality traits, there are two types of personality: extrovert personality and introvert personalities. Extrovert personalities are people who can speak up fluently with the public and can have good communication. So an extrovert person is more likely to have higher expressive communication as compared to an introvert person. So definitely personality characteristics is important for expressive communication. Next question: positive classroom communication leads to. When there is positive classroom communication, it would lead to persuasion. That is, if I am trying to explain something, I will be able to persuade you or convince you on the same concept. So the answer here would be persuasion. Next question: classroom communication is the basis for. The correct answer here would be social identity. So because you are in a classroom, you are communicating with different set of people and there is social interaction that is taking place, and therefore social identity holds an important key aspect in this. Next is effective communication. The key element for effective communication is understanding. If what I am communicating, if you are able to understand that, that means my communication is successful. That means you have understanding as a key aspect for effective communication. So the answer here would be 4. Next question. Now this is an interesting question. A message where you have both the verbal and the non-verbal aspect together is known as a mixed message. So when there is a mixed message with both verbal and non-verbal aspect, and both of them are contradictory, that means they are not in rhyme with one another. In such a case, non-verbal component will have a higher say as compared to the verbal component, and people will more likely believe the non-verbal component or the audiovisual component, I would say, would be more helpful. So you have non-verbal messages which would be believed by people at a higher rate. Next is typical feature of an information rich classroom is. When I say information rich, that means, for example, let's say I am trying to explain about India, and if I give a lots of facts about India regarding population, density, vegetation, climate, so on and so forth, that means I have too much of information in the lecture, and such a lecture I would say is a factual lecture because I am putting in more and more of facts in such a lecture. So the answer would be factual. Next question: identify the data type. Now data can be of two types: discrete or continuous. Discrete are integers, so I can say male and female, for example, or number of students 1, 2, 3, 4. I cannot say 4.5. However, in a continuous data, I can say from 40 to 41. I can have a range of 40.1, 40.5 and so on and so forth. So it's a kind of continuous data. So that means population, number of children and number of languages cannot be continuous. The only continuous data here can be the weight of students in the class, that can range from any number, and you can have a kind of continuous data for weight of students. Next question. Now this is a kind of question which requires simple reasoning. The first statement says glass, pencil and cup cost 21. So let's write all the equations together. Then it says glass, 2 pencil and cup cost 28, and then 2 glass, 2 pencil and 1 cup cost 35. Now let's see the first two statements. In the first two statements, I have 1 extra pencil, and that 1 extra pencil would cost me how much? 28 minus 21, that is 7. So the cost of 1 pencil here would be 7. Now I take the next two statements. Here I have 1 extra glass, and that extra glass would cost me 35 minus 28, that's again 7. So I can say cost of 1 glass would be 7. Since I have the cost of glass and pencil and the total cost, I can find out the cost of cup here, and this cost of the cup would be again 7, 7 threes are 21. Now since cost of 1 cup is 7, cost of 10 cups would be 70. So the answer here would be 70. Next question. Now this is a question which I believe students should get bonus marks here, because there can be various parameters in which I can say the cities resemble or they are different from one another. So let's say if I am trying to classify the odd one based on the river where it flows, I can say Rishikesh, Allahabad and Patna lie on Ganga river. However, Lucknow lies on Gomti river, which is a tributary of Ganga. So if I say that ways, I can say Lucknow should be the answer. In another ways, I can say Allahabad is the only place where you have the Triveni Sangam, or the Ganga Yamuna and the hidden Saraswati, the invisible Saraswati that meets at Prayag. The modern name is Allahabad, and you have Allahabad as the odd one out. So I can have different reasons for different choices. So this is a kind of very vague question that has been asked. Now next question. Some of the characteristics are given for reasoning, which is not a characteristics of deductive reasoning. Now when I took the class on deductive and inductive reasoning, we have explained to remember the concept of ISG, that is inductive reasoning moves from specific to general and vice versa for deductive. So deductive I can say is a top down, or it moves from general to specific. Now let's take a simple example. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. So Socrates is mortal. So I am moving from all men are mortal to Socrates is a mortal. Socrates is mortal. That means I am moving from general to specific. That means my conclusion is supported by the premises that are given here, and the conclusion follows from the premises necessarily. Otherwise I cannot conclude this. If my premises are not correct, I cannot conclude this. And again, a deductive argument can be either valid or invalid. So you have only one that is incorrect. So the answer here would be 1. Next question. The missing term in the series is. Now here it's a kind of series which talks about 1 cube, 2 square, 3 cube, 4 square, 5 cube. Since it's 1, 4, 9, 16 and the next number would be 125, and that goes on with 6 square, 7 cube. So the series is an alternate arrangement of squares and cubes. So you would have 5 into 5 into 5, that is 25 into 5, 125 would be the correct answer for this question. Next question. Here you have to solve the alphabet series. When we discussed in the class on alphabet series, as I explained, the best way to solve this question is to draw all the alphabets in a circular format, and once you have the alphabets in a circular format, you can easily solve those. So let's talk about the first letters from each. So you have Y, W, U and S. So M, N, O, P, Q. So you have P and Q here. So the next letter would be Q. So it should be either 2 or 3. Now again, let's work around the second letters. So it's E, then you have F, then you have G and then you have K. So you are taking the immediately next letter, leaving one letter, leaving 2 letters and leaving 3 letters. So the next word would be O. So you have Q, O, and the only correct choice here is 2. So you can still solve the remaining ones, but there is no use. So answer would be 2. Now next question, this is again a direct question, a very simple question. So you are given the various codes for the various letters. All you have to do is to put it in the respective places and see the answer. Now many students got confused. When I say A is coded as C, that means A becomes C. It does not mean C become A. That was the thing where most of the students got confused. However, this is a simple question. So C becomes S. So this would become S. O becomes E. So this would become E. So the only answer that starts with SE would be correct. So answer is 4. Next question. Now this is a question from syllogism. Let's draw the syllogism circles as we did in the problem on syllogism. So you have untouchability, curse and hot pens that are given. Now the first thing I say is untouchability is curse. That means all untouchability is curse. That means there is no untouchability that lies in this region. Now all hot pens are untouchable. So all hot pens are untouchables. That means there are no hot pens that lie in this region. So the only area where I can have the things would be this. Now all hot pens are cursed. So the only place where hot pens can remain is this region, and this region says all hot pens are cursed and thus fall in the area of curse. So that is correct. Again, if hot pen exists, I can say some untouchable things are hot pens because there can be some untouchable things which lie here if in case the pen exists. So you have to bring out the existential import here, and you can say that if hot pens exist, then some untouchable things can lie in this region. So this would again be true. However, I cannot comment about curse because I do not know anything about curse here. So I can curse can be here, here or here, anywhere. So I cannot claim that all curses are untouchability or some curses are untouchability. So these two statements cannot be derived. However, 1 and 2 can be derived. So answer would be 1, that is 1 and 2. Next question. None but the brave wins the race is false. Now this is a kind of tricky word problem question. So the important thing to understand here is, let's remove the confusion out here and convert this statement into a simpler language. I say none but the brave wins the race. That means I can say all who win the race are brave, and this statement is false. I am just simplifying the statement, none but the brave wins the race. So I can rewrite this as all who win the race are brave, and this statement is false. That means all who win the race are not brave would be the correct statement. And when I am saying this statement, I can say all who win the race are not brave. That means there are some people who win the race are not brave. Since all is there, some is implicit. So 2 would be the correct answer here. Next question. Now this is a very interesting question. The idea here is to understand how to work around these questions. We have talked about the class in square of opposition, how we go around the AIEO concept. Now the key element here is to understand that if one is undetermined, the other must be undetermined, and what kind of relationship this would be. So let's say I have a jar of balls. I have 5 balls here, and let's do an experiment. I would cover one of the balls here. Now if I say all balls are red, that is undetermined because I do not know the color of the ball which is covered. So this ball which I have covered, I do not know the color of that ball. That means all balls are red is undetermined, and since all balls are red is undetermined, I can say some balls are not red is also undetermined. Since I do not know the color of I don't know the color of this ball, I cannot say whether it would be red or green. So again this would be undetermined. So if all is undetermined, some are not red would automatically be undetermined, and that is a kind of contradictory relationship that exists. However, here we cannot go for a sub-contrary relationship where most of the students got confused with, because in a sub-contrary relationship what I say is some are green. So I have balls here out of which you have green balls, and I have another ball which I cover. So if I say some balls are red, that is true because I cannot determine that because you have covered one, and then when I say some are not red, that is determined because I know for a fact that some are not red here, because some are green, that was shown already here. since you have some are not red is undetermined, you cannot say some are red is determined, you cannot say some are not red would be determined. So you would have a kind of relationship that does not explain the undetermined form of one, which can be expressed by undetermined form of the second. However, in this case, it's a clear-cut demonstration where I say that I cover one ball, I say this cannot be determined because I have covered this ball, and since I do not know the color of this ball, this can be either red or green. I cannot say some balls are not red because again I do not know the color of this ball. So it can be red, it cannot be red. So again, if this is undetermined, this remains undetermined. So this would be a contradictory approach. Next question. Now this question is a simpler question where you have to simply kind of find a relationship or association. So bird's fins are analogous to fish's fin, that is given here. So it is a kind of analogical proposition that is given here. So the answer here would be analogy. Next question. Among the following propositions, two are related in such a way that they both cannot be true but both can be false. Now when we look at the square of opposition diagram, I can say to make a subaltern proposition you have to have both true. Okay, so subaltern cannot be the correct answer. Again, both cannot be false for contradictory, so contradictory cannot be the answer. So the only thing that remains here we have is the contrary approach. That means every student is attentive and students are not attentive would be the correct match. Now let's see the two statements. Every student is attentive and students are never attentive. I cannot say both can be true because if this is true, this has to be false. So both cannot be true. However, both can be false because when I say every student is attentive is false, that means this statement can be either false or true. It is undetermined. It can be false or it can be true. I cannot determine that, but there is probability that this can be false. So both can be false. So you have A and C as the correct option here. So 2 would be the correct answer, and this is an example of a contrary approach. Next question. Now these questions on table were a kind of simpler questions that were asked. The first question is, in 2015, what percentage of the total revenue came from books? Now here I have already marked out the totals below so that our questions become simpler here. Now what percentage of the total revenue came from books? It's very simple. For 2015 it's 78 by 173 into 100. So it would be nearly 45%, that would be the answer. Now next question, the number of years in which there was increase in the revenue from at least 2 categories of item. Now let's see here, there is an increase here and then increase here, again an increase here and increase here. So in 2 years, that's 2013 and 14, you have increased from at least 2 categories, that is magazines and books. So the answer here would be, the answer here would be 2. Now next question is, if I say the growth rate for 2014 and 15 remains the same for 2016, what would be the revenue for 2016? Now moving back to this question, I have the growth rates, I have the total sales as, total revenue as 169 and 173. Now let's come back to this question. So I have 173 minus 169 divided by 169 into 100 as the growth rate, growth in the sales revenue for 2014 and 15. Now this would be same as the growth rate for 2016, 15 and 16. So it would be x minus 173 divided by 173 into 100. Solving this, you get x as 177.09. So the answer here would be 4, that is 177 lakhs. Now this is a very tricky question and a very interesting question. Listen carefully to understand this question in detail. Now the first thing to solve questions like this is try to fill out the tables completely. So what I have been given here is a kind of broken table. So I have average, good, excellent and total. Then I have males, females and total. Now I have the data for males who are excellent as 10. I have the data for females in total, which is 32. And I have the data for total good students, which are 30. Now you have three statements based on which you have to fill the remaining table. Now pick up the first statement here, that is 40% students were females. Now females total is 32, that I know, and 40% of X are 32. So X would be 32 divided by 40 into 100, that comes to be 80. So I can say total students are 80. Now since total students are 80 and females are 32, how many would be males? Males would be 80 minus 32, that is 48. Again I say 1/3 of the males were average. 1/3 of the males were average, that means 1/3 of 48 would be 16. So 16 males were average. Now I know 16 and 10 is here. So how many males were good would be 16 plus 10, 26. 48 minus 26 is 22. Now come on to the last statement. First statement, that's half of the students were either good or excellent. So half of the total student comes to be 40. Now 40 students are either good or excellent. So this should come to be 40. Since this would be 40, this would be 10 because it's 30 already here. That means how many excellent females are there? 0. How many females should be here who are good? It should be 8. Now this much table is enough. You can solve the remaining, it's easy. But it is not required. How many female students are excellent? So we have the clear answer here as 0. Now what proportion of the female students are good? So you have 8 females out of 30 who are good. So 8 divided by 30 would be the answer, and that would come to nearly 0.26. So 0.25 would be the closest match. Next question, what proportion of good students are male? Now good students who are male would be 22 divided by 30, and that would be again 7.73. So you have 2 as the correct answer here. So you have 2 as the correct answer here. Next question. Now which of the following statement is true? Now first thing is, whenever you have a hexadecimal number and a decimal number with the same value, always the value of hexadecimal number for the same value would be higher. So you have first statement, that is incorrect. Now the second statement is, we have to convert this number into binary number into decimal. So you have 1110.101. Now let's do it. It's 0.02 raised to power 0. It's 1 into 2 raised to power 1, 1 into 2 raised to power 2, and 1 into 2 raised to power 3. That's 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 0. That comes to be 4. That comes to 14. That's towards the left hand side of decimal. Now going on to the right hand side of decimal, it would be 1 into 2 raised to power minus 1 and so on. So it would be 1 into 0.5 plus 0 into 0.25 plus 1 into 0.125. Now this becomes 0. So you have 0.5 plus 0.125 that we add, and that comes to 0.625. So the value for this number would be 14.625 in decimal, and the fractional part would be 0.625, that is correct. So you have the answer as 0.625, that is correct. So S2 would be the correct answer here. Now next question, ITC is a subset of information technology, that is correct. So the first statement is correct, and the right to use a piece of software is termed as copyright, that is incorrect. We call this as license. So the right to use a piece of software is not known as copyright but is known as license. So 2 is incorrect. So only 1 would be correct, 4 would be the correct answer here. And finally the last question. Now here you have the choices that have changed in this slide. However, for the question paper, this choice was in the 3 section. Now the key idea here is the CPU register has the highest speed, followed by cache memory, followed by main memory, and followed by a secondary storage. So the correct order would be CPU register followed by cache memory, followed by main memory, followed by secondary storage, which is having the least speed. So this would be the correct order. It's just the choices have interchanged here in the slide. So just ignore that. So with this we covered the set of 60 questions for NET paper 1. We'll be working out more topics for NET paper 1 closer to the July examination, where we'll be focusing this time mainly on topics related to computers, which many students found difficult this time. You can subscribe for more updates. Have a good day ahead.